Configuring advanced DNS settings. Now first, configuring the advanced DNS name resolution. In DNS advanced name resolution, we have these three options in advance. Now these options are by default enabled. So when we configure the DNS, so these options are by default enabled. The options are like this: enable the round robin. It will do what? It will resolve the names based on round robin. Now round robin, that means first client, suppose when you have more than one record for a single name, then what, it will use the round robin and it is selected by default. Then it also do the net mask reordering, and also it do the recursion. Now these options are by default selected. These are the advanced options. First, the round robin option. Round robin option do what? When you have a same name with multiple records, then it will do what? Our DNS server will do round robin to reply. In reply, it will do the round robin. That means when someone asks for the name, for the IP address of that particular name, then it will give the first IP, then it will give the next IP to the next client or the next request, then it will give the third IP when the third request comes. So it will do what? It will do the round robin here. For example, okay, so now we have suppose three web servers here, and this web server's IP is 1, then this server's IP is 2, then this server's IP is 3. Now I want that users, when the user wants to access the website, so I want to do the load balancing. That means that these three servers do the load balancing, and when someone asks the IP address, ask for the site, so it will also respond, and it will also respond, and they do the load balancing. So we can configure the network load balancing clusters, but you can do the small thing also, that we can configure in the DNS. What we do, we will give these IPs with the same name. For example, I will give the name www. I will create a name www, and then I will give the IP for 1. Then again I will create the same www with IP2, that means the second record. Then I will create the same name record with IP3. Now we have a name which is www, the same name, but the IP addresses, we have three different IP addresses. Now when the client wants to access the same name www, then what the DNS will do, it will reply in round robin fashion. So first question, when the client asks for the first time, it will get this IP 1. So your client will go to this server. The next time when the other client or this client also asks, then it will do what? It will give this IP, second IP, and that means what? The client will connect to second server, and the third time when the client asks, then it will give this IP, and this client will go to this server. Like it will do what? It will do the round robin for the same record what we have. So this happens when we have the same records with the same name record with multiple IP addresses. Now the option is enabled, so it will do this by default. The next thing is the net mask reordering. Net mask reordering is same as the round robin, but it will do what it will do for the different network subnet. For example, if the client is from the subnet, a different subnet, suppose the client is sitting from one subnet, and it is asking, and this is our DNS server, and we have different subnets here. So if the client from this subnet asks for the web server IP, so the DNS server will do what? It will reply the server which is located into the same subnet of that client. That means if we have multiple servers in different subnets, let's say we have server in this subnet also and this subnet also, but this subnet we don't have that web server, so we can create the different records here. Again, we can create the records here for all those network here, like this web server IP of this subnet and name we will create under the DNS server, and this subnet IP and name of the web server will create here. The name will be same, but the IP addresses are from the different subnets. Now the client from this subnet asks for the server, web server with the same name, so it will not get the reply of this server, this subnet IP. It will get the reply of the own subnet IP, so that it will connect locally. It will not go to other subnet for the web server. So round robin, this netmask reordering will do what? It will give the response for the client for the same subnet network. So if the client is asking for the record which is located into the same subnet, so it will get the reply from the same subnet of the same subnet server. It will not get the record from the other subnet for the other subnet. Then other by default option is selected, which is this secure cache against the pollution. That means the caching of the server is secure by the corruption, so that the caching server, the server's cache will not be corrupted, not been reordered, or not been removed or changed, not been changed by the hackers. It will do the same things. Then also we have option to disable the recursion. That is what the recursion. Recursion is the thing that which we do when DNS servers do when they want to find the record when they are not authorized to the query. Like if the server is get the query which is not authorized for this server. Now this DNS server is not authorized for giving the answer for that query. So it will do what? It will do the recursive query, it will do the recursion, it will go to root DNS server, then it will go to top level DNS server, then it will go to find out that DNS server record. So this is what? This is called recursion. And if suppose we don't want to have the recursion, then we can disable it from here. This is not disabled by default, but we can do disable it. Other options are there, like enable the bind secondaries. So we can bind with the we can use enable the bind secondaries, like secondary. This bind is available in Linux environment. This is same as this is the DNS. It is configured in the Windows Linux environment. So we can enable to bind this secondary DNS server as a bind, and then we can fail on load if bad zone data. So we can select this option to fail on load if the bad zone data. That means when our server reboots and if the zone data is not right or bad, then it will fail. Otherwise it will load whatever it is. So these are the options we have. These are the advanced options we have under the properties of the server. So those options we can see here under the DNS property. This is our DNS server, and when you open our DNS server forward zone, and here this is our zone. So when you go to the properties of this, you will go to advanced. Here you have these options. These options are by default selected and you don't have to select it, but if you want to remove it, then you can remove these options, and then if you want to select this, you can select this. So you want to disable the recursion, you can select this to disable the recursion. That means also disable the forwarders. So it will disable the forwarders also. Now what this do? Netmask reordering, or for example enable round robin. I will show you the round robin option here. We have a records here. So I will create one record here. Host a record. Let's say I will say www, and the IP address I will give to this is 192.168.0.100. So I'm giving one IP. Now I'm creating the same record for the same name. I will create another record, and this time I will give another IP 110. Then I will create one more record for the same name, and this time I will give the IP address 120. Now what we have a name www, but it has a different IP addresses, 3 different IP addresses. Now because the round robin is enabled, then what happens if any client wants to get the response? So what they will get in the round robin fashion. For example, from here I will try this. try to get the response. Okay, now this is a client, so here I'll go to CMD and I will use NS lookup to check our DNS server. Now what we get, this is our DNS server. Now I will try to get the name resolved. I will try to resolve the name which is we created with the three different records, www.thedomainnamesci.com. So first time when I ask for the record, so it gives me all three IP addresses. It gives me that these all three IP addresses belong to that name, that is 192.168.0.120, 192.168.0.100, 192.168.110. Now see, the first response is this 192.168.120. Now I will try to respond, search the query again. Now what I see here, I will see the same records, but the first response is what? 110. It is doing the round robin. And now when I request for the third time, what it shows here, it shows the 100, and it goes on, like it will keep changing the names, keep changing the IP addresses every time when I try to query, because the DNS server is doing the round robin. So it is responding, it is giving the reply in a round robin fashion. Now same as for the netmask reordering, if I am requesting from the different subnet, so it will give me the response from my subnet, it will not give me response from the other subnet. So this is what DNS and round robin and recursion. We know what is recursion. Then next thing is the root hint. Root hint servers are for the recursion. Now when suppose, remember, when you our client try to get any record from the DNS server, so DNS server checks whether it is authorized to respond or not, give the reply or not. If it is not authorized, then it will do the recursion and it will do the recursive queries and do the recursive query to root hint servers. Those root hint servers are the 13 root hint servers available in internet. Now what we can do, we can these root hint servers, root hint contains the IP addresses for the DNS root servers. Now what we can do also, we can create our own root hint server in our DNS server. We can create the record for our own root hint server in the DNS server, so that what we don't have to go to, suppose we want to go to resolve some IP addresses from the other subnet, or just like the forwarders from the other domain. So what, we don't have to go to root hint server to resolve all this. We can do what, we can create our own root hint server and then we can send the request to that root hint server. So whenever our DNS server will do recursion, so instead of going to these root hint servers, it will go to our own root hint server, and that is our different forwarders server, where it will do what, it will forward our request to the particular domain. So point is that we can also create our own root hint servers apart from the root hint servers we have already available in our DNS. So those root hint servers information you will find when you go to check the properties of your DNS server. So here you will see the root hint option, and in this you can see all these root hint servers. These are all root hint servers, and these are the names of root hint server, and this is the IP address of the root hint servers. And it is total number of 13 root hint servers available by default. And this information will be there for every server whenever you configure the DNS server. So DNS server will have this root hint server information available here, so that it can go to do the recursion query. Now we can do what, we can add our own root hint server information here. We can add the server's fully qualified domain name and IP address, so that it can become like it can act like a root hint server for our DNS server. So whenever our server wants to send the query to the recursion query to the root hint servers, it will send the query for our own root hint server, and that root hint server will forward our query to wherever I want to forward. Now next thing is the split DNS. Split DNS we create for doing the security. So for security reasons, in an organization, in a big organization, they do what, they create split DNS. Split DNS, that means we have two DNS servers in a internal network and an external network. Now basically what is the architecture we have for the secure environment? Like this is our internal network where our all internal users are there, or also internal servers are there. And then we have the internal domain controllers running Active Directory integrated DNS servers also. These all things are in our internal network. Now this internal networks will be secured by the firewall, which is filtering the traffic which is coming from outside. Then after the firewall we will have the DMZ zone. This is called DMZ zone, or we can say the parameter network also. Now in this DMZ zone or parameter network we put all those servers which can be accessed from online, from the internet. That means if suppose we want to have a website here for our organization, and if suppose we want to have the access of the this website from internet, so we should create it under the parameter network. So this web server, mail server, database server, whatever server we have which we want to access from internet, or we want to give the access to internet, we will put it into the parameter zone in the parameter network. And then we will put another firewall, and then this firewall, after the firewall we have the internet. So if suppose anyone wants to get into the websites of our organization, so what they have to do, they have to come from internet, they have to cross one firewall, and then they can get their web server or mail server of our organization. Now these web servers and mail servers are for the internet users. Now if they want to get the resources within the internal network, then they have to cross one more firewall, and then they can go to our internal network. Now we will configure the firewall here, like outside firewall we will configure that only allow the request for our network, our parameter web servers. Now very rarely, if suppose we want only someone to access the internet network, then we will allow them to cross this inside firewall. Other than that, we will not allow anyone to cross this inside firewall. So it can become a secure network. Now for resolving the name, we should have a DNS which is a split DNS. We should have a split DNS. Now for example, if anyone wants to access the web server, our web server, so it will do all the recursion queries and everything from internet, and it will get the IP address of our DNS server from the top level DNS server. So that DNS server IP will be our external DNS server. External DNS server which is located under our parameter network. That not be the DNS server which is located inside our internal network. So we should have a separate DNS server for the inside network, and we should have a separate DNS server for the outside external network. In this external DNS server we have records only for the parameter network servers. That means web server, mail server, or any other server. So it has records only for these servers. So it will resolve only these servers that will access from the internet. Now in this external DNS server we don't put any record for the internal machines or internal servers. Whatever internally we have, web server, mail server, domain controller, whatever, we should not have any record of these servers in the external DNS server. So that if suppose anyone hacks into this DNS server, it try to get the information, it will not get the secure information, it will get only the information which is already available on the internet for the internet. Now if someone is asking for the internal network, like we have allowed someone to access our internal resources from internet, we have allowed them from the firewall. So if suppose someone try to access it for the internal network from this DNS server, so first the query will go to external server, external DNS server. Now from here we can create the forwarders or stub zone, or we can put a routine record here for the internal servers, so that what it will forward the query to the internal DNS server. Now we can configure the policy on firewalls that it will only allow queries related to some specific queries. So by doing this, what we are doing here, we are creating the split DNS. Split DNS, that means the DNS for the internal network and the DNS for the external network. Now for example, our domain name is Sai. So external DNS server will have a sai.com, because the .com is the top level server's name, so it can resolve from the internet, and our internal DNS servers will have a sai.local. Now this sai.local cannot be resolved from internet, or it cannot work from internet. So .local or .com we can put like this to divide the DNS into two, like we have the internal DNS separate and the external DNS separate, and it is called split DNS. So what it do, clients and servers on the internal network send all DNS query to the Active Directory integrated DNS servers. And here in this external, host only records that are resolved from the outside, such as mail and web servers. Then if suppose the Active Directory integrated DNS servers return IP address back to those querying clients and servers on the internal network, then what? It will go to that firewall will allow it to go there outside network. Now the external DNS server provides name resolution for internet clients, and internet clients can resolve the names from here, from the external DNS server, and this DNS server will only resolve these names of these parameter network servers which we have allowed to access from internet. And if anyone try to get into this internal network from internet, then it is not allowed and it will be disabled on the firewall. So that is what the split DNS. Now split DNS, implementing the split DNS, first same namespace. That means internal record should not be available externally, and record might need to be synchronized between internal and external DNS. Then unique namespace. This is for the same namespace. If you are using the same namespace, that means sai.com for internal and sai.com for external both. Then unique namespace, then here record synchronization is not required, and existing DNS infrastructure is unaffected, and clearly delineate between internal and external DNS. That means we are completely dividing these two. Then subdomain, we can have record a subdomain. That means we can create the subdomain as a subdomain. The split DNS we can create as a subdomain. So record synchronization is not required, and contiguous namespace is easy to understand. That means we create a internal domain as a top level domain, and then external DNS as a second, or external DNS as a top level, and internal as a subdomain. Then we have DNS policies. These DNS policies we can configure from the PowerShell, and these policies we can define that how and who can access and filter, who can resolve, and how the resolution can work. These DNS policy scenarios are to application high availability we can configure. We can configure the policy for the high availability of the application's traffic management. Then for the split brain DNS is the split DNS we have. Then also for filtering and forensic. Then DNS policy subjects are client subnet. The client subnet, which is when we configure the DNS policy, so we use the client subnet. That means the subnet for which we are creating the policy. Then recursion scope, where it can recurse, and the zone scope, which zone we want to configure it, the zone name. And we can do this, we can configure the policies from PowerShell. We cannot configure it from graphically, you can only configure it from PowerShell. Then implementing the DNS security. We can secure our DNS by using these different options. First, like DNS cache locking. This will prevent the entries in the cache from being overwritten until a percentage of the time to leave has expired. This is very important because the hackers try to do the attacks of cache poisoning. This will save us from the cache poisoning attack. And it will do what in this attack, what attacker try to corrupt the cache of the DNS server in a false record, so that when someone asks for the server, suppose the valid web server, so it will redirect the client to the fake web server, and then the attacker can extract the information from the client. So it will not happen, so that we can do the cache locking. Cache locking, that means it will lock the cache, it will not change the cache value until a specified time to leave has expired. It will set the time to leave, and when the time to leave is expired, the time, then it will do what? It can clear the cache and it will update the cache. Then DNS socket pool, it will do the randomize the source port for issuing DNS queries, and it's enabled by default in Windows Server 2012 and 16. And it will do what? It will select the randomized source port every time when queries goes and comes. This will also save us from the different kind of attacks on DNS. So that attacker wants to do the attack, then it has to guess the right port, because every time the port is randomizing. Then DNS based authentication of named entities, that is DANE. Now this uses the TLSA, that means Transport Layer Security Authentication records, that state the CA, that is certificate authority from which they should expect a certificate. Now these records are like, suppose you want to connect some specific web server. Like for example, I want to connect the web server like facebook.com. That record is available in our DNS server. So what DNS server will do, it will also have the record that which certificate server will give the certificate for this particular web server or the services. So these records, these DANE configuration do what? We configure the certificate authority link, that when you want to connect this service or server, then which certificate you want, and you want to go to which certificate server. So this will save us from the man in the middle attack, where the attacker do what? Try to provide the false certificate and then try to get in the middle of the traffic and try to extract the information. Then the thing is domain name system security extension. This is called DNSSEC. It enables the cryptographically signed DNS records so that client computers can validate the response. Now in this, what we can do, we can configure the secure and encrypted records and signing the records, so that all records will be signed, and when the client want to access it, then it can do what? It can validate the response. That means the response is coming from the DNS server or it is coming from other fake DNS server. So all the records will be signed when you enable this DNS security. Now clients will not do the DNS query by using the DNSSEC by default. By default, the clients don't do the query of the signed cryptographic query. So we have to force the client to also do the cryptographic query or use the DNSSEC to do the queries, and that will be done by the group policy. So we have to change the group policy and force the client to do the query to do the secure query. By default, the clients don't do the secure query, so we have to force them by creating the group policy and configuring the group policy so that they can do the secure policy, request. So implementing the DNSSEC. First, DNSSEC functions as follows. So if a zone has been digitally signed, a query response will contain digital signature. And DNSSEC uses trust anchor, which are a special zone that store public keys associated with the digital signature. That means the digital signature is signed by using that public key, and that public key is stored into the zone, and that zone called the trust anchor. So resolver use trust anchor to retrieve public keys and build the trust chain. So the resolver, that means the server which is resolving all these records, it will get the key from the trust anchor and build the trust chain. Then DNSSEC requires the trust anchor to be configured on all DNS servers participating in DNSSEC. Now by default, the trust anchor will be the all DNS servers. That means whatever the DNS server we are using as a DNSSEC, so all those DNS server will be the trust anchors. Then DNSSEC uses the NRPT, which contains rules that control the requesting client computer behavior for sending queries and handling the responses. As I said, the client will not do the secure query by default, so we have to configure the policy here. That is the NRPT policy for the client. Now for enabling the DNSSEC, what we have to do, we have to just go to zone which we want to use the signing, and then we have to do the right click on it, and then you will get the DNSSEC option, and from where we can do the signing of that zone. Now when you select that, you will get this wizard, and this wizard will explain first that what it is going to do, and after that we get this option here where you can see that choose the option to sign the zone. That means first option says customize zone signing parameters. That means you will select parameters manually, or you can select the sign the zone with the parameters of an existing zone. So if you have already a zone which is already signed, so you can use that signature also, or you can use the default setting. Default setting is sufficient, so you can just use the default setting for signing. And then when you select the default, in the next step it is finished, and it will select these default option. These options you can change with the manual configuration. You can change these default settings. And in the next step you have to finish it to complete the complete the signing of zone. When we sign the zone, so in a DNS manager we see some more records here. We'll see some extra encrypted or signed records there in our zone. Then we have to configure our client to use the secure query. That means name resolution policy table. So we have to configure it from the name resolution policy table, and we have to force the client to accept to use the secure queries. Now this is our DNS server, and we have this zone, and this is our domain zone sai.com. I want to make this zone as a sign zone. So what I will do, I will right click here on the zone, and then this is the option DNSSEC. So when I select this sign the zone, so it will do what? It will open this wizard. It says here that domain name system security extension DNSSEC is a suite of extension that adds security to the DNS protocol. Specifically, DNSSEC provides origin authority, data integrity, and authenticated denial of existence. DNSSEC provides the ability for DNS servers and resolver to trust DNS responses by using digital signatures for validation. So this is what it is going to do. We go next here. Now we can select the customize option to select multiple custom options, or we can just go by the default. Now when you go by the default, it will show you this directly, that these are the options you have selected by default. Now if you want to do it manually, then you will select this custom option, and then this is option to select the zone signing from the other zone. That means if you have another zone which is already signed, so we can use that zone also, and we can use the same parameters here. But if you want custom, then it will go like this. When you go next, it says who is the key master. Choose the key master for this zone. So the DNS server is server 1 is the key master. This is the same DNS server which is the zone is there. This zone is located in server 1, so this server will be the zone master. If you have multiple DNS servers, then you can select another DNS server for the key master. Key master will have a master key for this zone sign zone. The next step, it says key signing key. That means the key which used to sign the key. So where and how that key you will use. This key is an authentication key that corresponds to the private key used to sign one or more other signing keys, and typically the private key corresponding to a KSK will sign other keys used for signing the zone. So the key which is used to sign the zone, this key is used to sign that key, and the key signing key may have a long validity period in order to provide a more stable secure entry point into the zone, and the public key of this key signing key is used as a trust anchor for validating DNS responses. So we'll go next here, and now it is saying what do you want to add. Configure one or more key signing key. So we have to add it here, and this is the settings. This is the setting, like this will be the GID, unique ID. Here generate new signing key, or you can use already signed key. You can generate a new, or you can use a pre-generated key if you have already generated. I'll go with the generation. I don't have any pre-key. Then you have key properties. This will be the property. The properties, like this is the algorithm it will use. You can change the algorithms. Then it is the length of the bit length for the key. Then select the key generation provider. This is the key generation provider, Microsoft key storage provider. This is the DNS key reset FT after every 168 hours. replicate the private key DNS servers authorized to this zone. Then key roller will roll after this every resolver frequency like 755 days, and delay the first roller after 0. So you can change these values. I'll go with the default and then create one key. Now the key is created, key signing key is created. Now we can go next. Then it will ask for the zone signing key, the key which is used to sign the zone. So let's create that now. Now again there is no key, so you have to create that. Again this is having some options like cryptography algorithm, bit, the key providers, encryption storage key provider, then key signature validity, DS signature validity, then zone record validity. You can change these validities, these are in hours, and this key roller, how frequently it rolls the hour. Remember, this is the key which is used to sign the zone, and it is having a less validity than the key signing key. Key signing key has a very long validity in days, but here it is in hours. It already told that these keys, the key signing key is having the more validity than the zone signing key. Okay, so I have created with the default value. Next, then it is asking for the next secure NSEC, that is called next secure, and this resources records provide authenticated denial of existence. Now attacker do the different attacks, and actually they do an attack which is use this denial of existence thing. Like for example, they do try to query the records on the DNS server, and it try to find the response, it try to get the response, and when suppose the response says when suppose it send the query to the DNS server to get the response, and when the record is there, so the hacker will get the record that this is the IP and this is the name. Now sometimes there is a firewall there. So sometimes there is a firewall there, and in the firewall we are blocking the record, blocking the queries. For example, for the internal, let's say this is split DNS, and in internal we are blocking the queries. Now attacker use different things. It do what? It send the query and wait for the response. If it is not getting any response, that means the firewall is what? Blocking it. And if it is crafted the query to bypass the firewall, like suppose it is crafted the query in different ways, and then it will send the query to the DNS server. Now DNS server will check the query, and it will do what? It will respond. Either it will say the record is there, or it will say record is not there. Now this is what the not existent record. Now if the firewall is not filtering the queries, these attackers queries, then this not existence query will also go to this the hacker. Now this authenticated denial of existence means it will not give the denial of existence also to the users who is not authenticated to our zone, our server, our DNS, which does not have the signed key. So it will not give any response whether it is there, the record is there or not there. So not there record response will also not go to the not authenticated users. So any hacker try to get the response from the DNS server. So if it does not know the key, proper key, signed key, then what? It will not get any response whether it is record is there or not there. Denial of existence record also it will not get. So this will do what? It will secure that. It will generate and use the random salt of length. These are the salt length it will do. Iteration it will do. This is NSEC 3, or we can use the old one, that is use NSEC, or we can use more secure NSEC 3 to secure from those denial of existence attack from the attacker. This use opt out to cover unsigned delegation also. We can select this to use the opt out to cover unsigned delegation. Now this is recommended for zones with many unsigned delegations. Now if suppose we have a zone which contains any other sub zones, or we can say the delegation zones which is not signed, this zone is signed but the other zone is not signed, so we can use this option to secure that also. Now it is saying trust anchor. So who is the trust anchor? Mostly the DNS servers. All the DNS server will be the trust anchor. So enable automatic update of the trust anchor on key roller. So whenever the key rolls after a particular 755 days, then it will select the new key trust anchor. By default, by default the all DNS servers will be trust anchor. Or we can select enable the distribution of trust anchor for this zone. We can distribute the trust anchor to multiple DNS servers. Signing and pooling parameters, this is the option to see how the signing and pooling parameters will work. What will be the time to leave, what will be the DNS key records in seconds, and then the algorithm which is used, signature inception after every hours, offset from current time when the signature is created. So it is going to do these times after when the signature is created. This is what the configuration values for the signing off and pooling. And then this is what, now I have not changed anything else, so I could have taken the default settings. So because I have not changed anything, so I should have taken the default option. Now default option will also give me the same features and same keys. So if you want to change some settings like hours, days or something, or different algorithm you want, then you can go for the custom. Otherwise we can go for the default. And now it is signed and finish. Now these records are the normal records, but now I will refresh the zone and we will see some more secure records here. We can see the encrypted records here. So we have normal records also, and we have the secure records also. So when the client asks for the secure records, they will get these secure records. And if the client asks for the normal record, they will get the normal record. But we have to force the client to get the to do the secure query, not do the normal query. Now for that, what we have to do, we have to force the client from group policy. Now this is our domain, so we don't have to do local policies. We don't have to change local policy on every machine. We can change the domain policy, and we can force the all members, all the clients of the domain to use secure or the secure DNS query. So for that, I will go to this group policy management, and under the group policy management, this is our domain, and under the domain we have one policy here, domain default policy. So I can create a new policy, or I can edit this existing domain policy which is applying on all the domain. So I will edit this, and under this computer configurations and policies, under this Windows settings, we have this NRP. NRP, that means name resolution policy table. So when we open this, you will see this policy here, and what we see here, that create the rule, to which part of the namespace does this rule apply. So you can select the suffix, prefix, FQDN, subnet, or IPv4, IPv6, or you can go for any, or you can just give a domain name here. Like I will go for prefix sci.com, that means all those domain of sci.com prefix, all the names, all the records of sci.com prefix. Then certificate authority, if you have a certificate authority to do the signing, then you can select that certificate authority. Right now it is optional, so if you have, then you can select. Then for DNS security, you just have to enable it. Enable in this rule, and validation, require the DNS client to check that name and address data has been validated by the DNS server or not. Then also you can use the IPsec in communication between DNS and the client DNS server, so that it will use the secure communication between user and client. And you can use different algorithms also, or you can use no encryption, only integrity. Now this is what you create, and then you can do what? You can select create here. Now when you create, okay, invalid names suffix, okay, I mistakenly selected prefix. I have to select suffix. So it is created now, sai.com, and this is DNSSEC is enabled. Now this is the rule which we have created. Now every client of this domain will follow this rule and they will do the secure query and try to do the secure query for the DNS and the zone DNS, all the records which is having this sai.com. So that will do what? Apply. So this is how we can force the clients to use the secure queries. Now last, we can do what? We can use DNS on Nano server also. That means we can use Nano server as a DNS server. For using the Nano server as a DNS server, what we have to do? We have to install the Nano server package first, and then we have to create the VHD of the Nano server by using this Microsoft Microsoft Nano server DNS package. That means when we create the VHD, then we will use this, we will add this package also in that Nano server. Then import it into Hyper-V virtual machine and then configure the network setting to enable the remote management firewall port and then connect remotely to the server running Nano server by using the PowerShell and on a Windows client or a server. Then what? Run the command enable Windows optional feature online feature name will be DNS server full role. So this will do what? It will enable the role in the Nano server, and then we can manage the DNS server through PowerShell, because in Nano server we don't have any graphical option and even we don't have any command line there also. So we have to do everything remotely. So we will connect the Nano server remotely through the PowerShell remoting, and then we can manage the whole DNS server by using the PowerShell, and we can use this Nano server as a DNS server for us. So these are some advanced settings for the DNS server which we can configure and we can see.